This video will demonstrate and explain the basic rules for racing in Club 25. Specifically, we will be covering the various ways that will result in a penalty, whereby you must pull over and let the person who you caused grief to pass you. Okay, so for the first maneuver that we're going to demonstrate is called a torpedo. And what this is essentially where you're running behind another car, and instead of braking into a corner like normal, you just don't use the brakes at all, or very little, and you use the car ahead of you almost as a brake. You intentionally run into them and crash into them, causing them to crash, obviously. Some people won't use brakes and will just use the wall as their brake. However, if you end up doing that and you end up taking out another car, that is clearly a no-no. So that is the first rule, that you are not allowed to brake. You're not allowed to torpedo anybody, and this is what a torpedo is. Okay, the second one is called a dive bomb. It's very similar to a torpedo. However, the difference here is that you are braking for a corner. Your intention is to take the corner and not hit the wall. However, what you're trying to do is you're trying to brake extremely late and essentially go for a gap that when you get to it won't exist. Essentially, there's a car in front of you and the car is going to take the corner normally because you're far back, and you want to go onto his inside. So what you do is you brake extremely late and you dive to the inside of the other car. But then when the other car turns into the corner because he doesn't know you're coming, you end up hitting the side of his car because you're carrying too much speed. And when you hit the side of his car, he ends up hitting the wall and you carry on. That's a dive bomb, and that's the second thing that is definitely not allowed. Okay, the third thing that you can't do is pretty straightforward. It's don't spin people out. So if you're coming up next to somebody, don't turn into the rear bumper and spin them out. Likewise, if you're going into a corner and they're just in front of you and you have a small overlap, don't spin them out. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy to get the hang of, I think. Okay, so these next two are pretty similar, so we're going to cover them together. The first is don't push people out. This means that if you pull up next to somebody, don't start leaning on their door to the point where you're going to push them off the racing surface and onto the grass or over the edge of the track. They're allowed to fight back on that. They're allowed to hold exactly where they are, which brings us to the second thing, which is hold your line. And in a hold your line scenario, you're not at fault if another person crashes off of your nose if you're holding your line on a straightaway. And what this means is if you have a small overlap on another car and the other car starts moving over on you and you move over to the edge of the racetrack and they keep trying to move over on you, and your choice is to go off the racing surface onto the grass or over the edge of a track, or cause that person to spin out, you are allowed to hold exactly where you are on the edge of the track, and if they move over on you and spin themselves out, that is not your fault. That is their fault, and you do not have to stop and give that position back. That is the concept of hold your line versus the concept of don't push people out. Okay, so the final rule that you're not allowed to break, or else you have to give position back, is the concept of weaving. Weaving is where somebody has a run on you, either from slipstream or just from getting a better run out of a corner, or just having a faster car even, and they have a run on you and they're going to pass you guaranteed down a straight, or get an overlap guaranteed down a straight. And what weaving is you see that they're coming and that they're going to get alongside you, so what you do is you aggressively block them. Now, on a straightaway, you're allowed to have one defensive maneuver. You're allowed to move over one time to block them one time. After that, you are not allowed to move from your position on the racetrack unless they pass you or until the next corner. So in weaving, you make that first blocking maneuver, and then the party that's got the run on you moves over to the other side, and you move to block them a second time or a third time or a fourth time. That is not okay. If they continue to try to go for the pass and you block and spin yourself out on their car, they don't have to wait for you. And if they try to make the pass and you are aggressively weaving and you hit them and cause them to crash, you have to wait and give them the position. That is how we deal with weaving. Okay, so those are the basic rules for racing in GTA in Club 25. Hopefully this video has been helpful for you, and if you're not a member of Club 25 and you would like to join up for some fun and competitive racing, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.